आवाज येते माइक ऑन केले का आवाज येतो व्हिडिओ कॉल
Good afternoon. On behalf of the Department of Foods, Nutrition and Dietetics of College of Home Science, Nirmala Niketan, I, Dr. Subhadra Mandalika, faculty of the department, welcome each one of you the most enthusiastic participants of this webinar series on Vikas, tackling the new normal in foods, nutrition, and dietetics. We are indeed overwhelmed with the amazing response of the participants, that is over 1,500 of the participants registering for the webinar. Thank you very much to each one of you. I now request our beloved principal, Dr. Geeta Ibrahim, to welcome all of you on behalf of our institute. Dr. Ibrahim.
Thank you, Dr. Subhadra. A very good afternoon to all of you. Amazing number of participants that Dr. Subhadra just shared. And thank you for being here. On behalf of the College of Home Science, Nirmala Niketan, and Department of Foods, Nutrition and Dietetics, I welcome you all to the first webinar of eVikas series on tackling the new normal in foods, nutrition and dietetics. The term new normal has literally taken over our lives already. As you can see, even hosting such webinars is a new normal for us. And I congratulate Mrs. Anuradha Mitra, head of the department, and a team of enthusiastic staff and students who have been working relentlessly against all odds, yet another new normal of being 24/7 housewives, cooks, maids, all rolled into one, and academicians in addition to attending and organizing such webinars. Just as with every other field, there is bound to be an impact in the field of nutrition too. And it's really heartening to see the experts who have been invited to share their thoughts on what would be the new normal in the different fields of nutrition, related to nutrition, right from the food industry to the dietitians, to hospitals, to nutritionists. And I'm sure whatever they're going to share with us is going to be of immense help to our students and to all the participants who are here. I'm also very happy to have our own illustrious alumni, Madhvi Trivedi and Tirtha, to lead us in this discussion. I thank Kellogg's for being our partners in this series. I wish the series a grand success, and I know that each one of you is going to take off from here something very, very precious. So once again, hearty congratulations to the Foods, Nutrition and Dietetics Department, and welcome to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ibrahim, for your motivational words and for your wishes. We are indeed very fortunate to have a supportive management who encourages us in all our endeavors. Towards this, our President, Dr. Maggie Alessio, has kindly sent her wishes through her message. I shall take the privilege of reading out that message to all of you. I congratulate Dr. Geeta Ibrahim, the principal, Dr. Anuradha Mitra, the head of the Department of Foods, Nutrition and Dietetics, and the whole team for organizing this webinar series on relevant topics which would inspire and educate many people during this lockdown. The continued lockdown due to COVID-19 and its consequences have given sufficient time for everyone to rethink and reorient our priorities and choices of life, especially of food and lifestyle. It demands a shift in the approach of the professionals, especially in the field of foods, nutrition and dietetics. In this context, the webinar series planned by the F&D Department of Nirmala Niketan College of Home Science is the need of the hour, and it will surely bring an impetus to those who want to make a difference in the lives of others through their very profession and interest. On behalf of the NN management team, I wish all of you, especially all the alumni speakers, the very best for a successful event. May you instill hope and confidence in all the participants. Thank you, Dr. Maggie, for your wishes and keeping us in your prayers. Before beginning the sessions, we feel it's very important to put forth our intentions of planning this event in front of you. I now request Mrs. Anuradha Mitra, Head of the Department of Foods, Nutrition and Dietetics, to share the theme of this webinar with the participants. Over to you, Mrs. Mitra.
Thank you very much, Dr. Subhadra. Good afternoon, dear students, friends, and fellow teachers and professionals from the fraternity. It gives me immense pleasure to welcome you all to this humble endeavor of our department. We want to reach out, especially to students and of course other interested learners and listeners during this trying time of the global crisis. By now, webinars are no longer a novelty. And from what I see, it seems to indicate that they are here to stay as a part and parcel of the new normal. All of you must have definitely participated in a number of webinars by now. I also don't want to elaborate on the current scenario as you are very well acquainted with COVID-19 and its preventive strategies. This pandemic, however, is surely going to impact our day-to-day functioning, both at our personal as well as our professional level, where uncertainty is the only thing that is certain. So we need to be prepared. Youngsters especially may not have a very easy time in their careers. With this concern and background, our webinar series aims at exploring both the current and post-COVID preparedness in our field of expertise. We have tried to include speakers from different branches and sub-branches of nutrition, speakers who are dietitians, sports nutritionists, nutrition communicators, experts in food processing, preservation, corporate heads, nutrition, communicators, entrepreneurs, etc. So during this entire set of webinars, you will encounter these speakers, and we have tried our level best to touch upon all the areas. As our principal has earlier said, that we had a very overwhelming response to the webinar series. And as an outcome of that, we thought of inviting two very special guests to grace our inaugural webinar, our illustrious alumni. Our moderator, Dr. Subhadra Mandalika, will soon introduce you to them. Before we proceed with the interesting talks, I wish to place on record my gratitude and sincere thanks to the following. First of all, our collaborator, Kellogg's India Private Limited, whom we can always bank on for support in all our academic endeavors. The management of Nirmala Niketan Institute, especially our president, Dr. Maggie, whose message Dr. Subhadra had read out to you all. Our principal, Dr. Geeta Ibrahim, for her constant support and encouragement, for believing in us and giving us the freedom to plan and to conduct the webinars. My deep gratitude and thanks to my entire department staff who have tirelessly worked towards this endeavor. My volunteers, students who have gone out of their way to assist us, to staff of the other departments, especially Rupa Rao, who have lent us their technical guidance, and also all others whom I may have inadvertently missed out. I now call upon Dr. Subhadra to take over, and I'm sure all of you will have a very interesting afternoon, and all the other days to follow. Do keep be there with us for all the webinars. So all the best to everybody. Subhadra, please take over.
Thank you, Mrs. Mitra, for sharing the theme with all the participants. Yes, as Mrs. Mitra rightly said, we have loaded each of our webinars with a bonus of intellectual packages that would certainly contribute rich learning experience to each one of you. But for that, we need to have uninterrupted, smooth streaming of the sessions. For this, we all have to make serious attempt. Let me give you 3 very important instructions. The first instruction is never unmute yourself during the webinar. And second one, please don't switch on your videos. And third one, we will be taking your questions towards the end of all 3 sessions. Please post your questions in the chat box, which we will take up, and each of the experts will be answering your queries. Now, we are moving closer to the webinars. And today's webinar, Commissary Operations and Safety Practices During the Pandemic. Our department is extremely proud to say that most of our webinar sessions are going to be deliberated by our illustrious alumni. Today, we are very proud to have one of the most successful professionals in food industry and also one of the illustrious alumnus of our institute, Mrs. Madhvi Trivedi. Mrs. Madhvi Trivedi is currently working as Senior Associate Director, Nutrition and Scientific Affairs, Kellogg AMEA. We'll come to what is AMEA a little later. She has vast experience of 34 years in the field of foods, nutrition and dietetics, which includes 22 years of experience in healthcare communication. Before joining Kellogg's, Mrs. Madhvi worked as a faculty member in our department of Foods, Nutrition and Dietetics at College of Home Science, Nirmala Niketan. She has also worked as healthcare communications consultant with serious food and pharma companies. Today, as Senior Associate Director, Nutrition and Scientific Affairs, Kellogg, she leads all the nutrition initiatives for Kellogg AMEA emerging markets, that is Asia, Middle East, Africa, Turkey, and China, and also Korea. Through her services, she handles nutrition insight and communication, nutrition marketing, nutrition compliance, scientific research initiatives, and inputs into innovation projects. Mrs. Madhavi has brought in several initiatives in the industry and in the field of nutrition, but among them, I have picked up only two to share with all of you. The first one being development of common nutrition criteria white paper for responsible marketing to children and guided daily amount document on front of pack labeling. And the second one, which I think is very close to her heart, is India Breakfast Habits Study. This has been the outcome of this has been translated into the Power of Breakfast initiative to build awareness on the importance of breakfast. Today, Mrs. Madhvi is going to deliberate on finding inspiration for nutrition in pandemic times, a food industry perspective. Mrs. Madhvi, over to you.
Hello, everyone. A very, very good afternoon to all of you. And I know we have a very large crowd, so most welcome to each one of you here. At the outset, I'd like to sincerely thank the principal, Dr. Geeta Ibrahim, who has invited me for this first inaugural session. She is very dear to me because she's taught me biochemistry and I hold my strong fundamentals and all thanks to her. She's been my MSc guide and I'm very close to her till date today. Thanks to Anuradha Mitra, who's been my batchmate, who's been my colleague and who's a very, very dear friend of mine today. And thanks to the entire F&D department. I have some students sitting out there. I have my ex-colleague Veena Yadi and Jacqueline Colasso and many others. So it's wonderful effort. And I just heard prior to us joining the webinar that we have more than 1,500 participants. So a big thumbs up to the entire team to get this kind of crowd here. So thank you so much for inviting me. I think we are all proud alumni. And at the same time, I'm extremely humbled to be presenting in the first session here. So I'll start presenting my screen. And today I'm going to share with you the perspective on food industry and how it is going to be impacting the COVID. Can you see my screen?
No, Madhvi, you'll have to share the screen.
Yeah, I'm sharing.
Yeah. Yes, put it on slideshow, please.
Yeah. Just give me 1 minute. Yeah. Is it visible to all now?
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you so much. So the topic that I'm kind of going to bring is the perspective from the food industry. As everyone rightly put it, and we all know what's happening in the COVID time, so I'm not really going to dwell on that. But the idea is to actually tell you that what are the possibilities and opportunities that will emerge out of the new normal. It has been a very challenging time, but not I would say it is still laden with a lot of opportunities for the food industry. And what I'm going to share are actual data, which, I have pulled out so that, it doesn't come out as a perspective that I am presenting, because these are like stalwart insight collector companies like Mintel and Euromonitor, which collect all the data for people to actually abide by and to give us the insights. So there you will find my slides actually around some of the data that I have collected. So if you see what are going to be the key impacts of COVID-19, the outbreak is actually going to have a profound impact, we know, on the global economy. We are already seeing that, and also on the consumer markets. So what are the key shifts that are going to happen in the way people start behaving differently? And these are the 7 things that come across very clearly. One is well-being. People are going to seek, and this is where we really very profoundly sit. So I'm going to dwell on it for a minute more, because well-being is going to be sought after, because people want physical as well as mental wellness. We know that a lot of people are going through loneliness, isolation, emotional instability, anxiety. So even mental wellness is very important here. Besides that, I think in terms of surroundings, people want to feel connected to the external environment. A lot of people we know are saying that we have never connected with our families the way we are connecting now on Zoom calls. We are regularly talking to our friends, partying on the Skype meetings, etc. Technology, we know that technology has come to our rescue, right? We are finding solutions, and today our webinar is happening thanks to technology. So it's going to be playing a very, very big role in our lives as we move forward. Rights of people, people want to be respected. We know, the healthcare workers, I think everybody's recognizing their inputs. People want to be protected and supported. So it's like, apartment communities are getting together. There's so much of giving and sharing that's happening across the globe. Then people are going to seek value, definitely, because it's going to come up to recessionary environment. So it is just not about monetary value, but even other things. Will you find value in the way people are behaving, value in the things that you buy? And so it will be, measurable benefits from the investments that you make in terms of everything around you. Identity, so understanding and expressing oneself and one's place in society. I think somebody who started, Mrs. Ibrahim said it right, that we are all kind of finding new ways, and kind of thinking through new things now. We are doing a lot of introspection as well. So it's all kind of bringing us to live what actually we want to live for, and experiences. So we are discovering seeking and discovering stimulation to keep us kind of engaged and alive and agile and adaptable. So in terms of 4 areas impacting the world of foods in light of COVID-19, if I were to put them together, it is the macro environment and there is legislation. So when I talk about macro environment, it is that there is a negative macro economic environment. We know that there is going to be increased unemployment. We are already hearing about it, pay cuts, etc. Actually closure of certain sectors like airlines, hotel industry, etc. And they are going to impact the economy big time. And legislation in terms of enforced lockdowns. People have to, they want to do business, they want to go out, but they can't because it's just legislated to stay at home. Supply chain is impacted because the cross-border from country to country, state to state, basically is being closed down, and so the supply chain is being impacted. Borders are closed. Channels. Now we know that there is a complete shutdown of food service. There is people are not visiting restaurants, etc. Institutional channels are shutting down. At the same time, there is a huge shift in in-store retailing and also an increase in e-commerce. While malls have shut down, we know that small mom and pop shops are coming to our rescue today. Everybody is buying their grocery from the local vegetable vendors, the local banya. So that is going to be a big thing in terms of in-store retailing. And at the same time, e-commerce is likely to pick up. And as I take you through my slides, kind of will take you what's kind of how it's going to pan out. And when you talk about a consumer, that is the person, or the people we are talking about at large, whom we will be catering to, and how they are consuming. People we know did a lot of panic buying, stockpiling of foods, and toiletries, and other things. Also, people don't want to expose themselves to the virus, and therefore they are making fewer trips, shopping trips, and so the shopping baskets are becoming larger. They are buying more at one time so that they don't have to keep going for more. And the pack sizes that they are buying are also larger because it will last them for that much longer. And has the pandemic changed the way we eat? So as we know that food preferences and culture of eating food, right, we'll see a huge transformation. And probably some of the things are going to stay with us for a long, long time, or forever maybe. So what are the key things that we are seeing? The key things that we are seeing is healthier eating. People are definitely, when you actually do the net search, okay, and we do a lot of that social listening because that's part of our work in terms of what are people talking about in different social media. And we see that a lot of people are searching for healthier eating, healthier foods, etc. That is also the diktat that's coming from FAO, WHO, etc. This is something that we always knew. But I think that COVID-19 is really fueling this trend. Besides that, people are seeking to boost their immune system. We know the number of magazine articles and newspaper articles on even the functional traditional ingredients like turmeric, garlic, etc. So people, ginseng in Southeast Asia, I'm saying shiitake mushrooms in China, and across actually the regions that I handle, there are new things that I'm seeing which people are rushing to buy. So definitely people want to actually choose what goes inside their systems today. Preference for home cooked foods is definitely on the high, right? The number of recipes being shared by people, and it's more so because they don't have a choice. Right now, people are homebound and in self-isolation, they have to cook. Okay, so there we have new home chefs and we have new YouTube chefs coming up. However, the question is whether this will actually remain as a something that's a compulsion, or it will change into a preference where people prefer to kind of cook food at home. And that is for us to see. Eating local food is becoming very, very kind of common now. People are worried about the source of food, and therefore preferring to eat hyper local foods. And there is some amount of skepticism around the foreign goods which could rise in the future. From which market is this coming from? Because we understand that this particular virus started from a wet market in Wuhan. And so there's been a lot of write-ups on the net around all this. So this is going to be a thing that people will look at with skepticism. Eating safe and hygienic food, we know that it was, always a important thing to do, but there is an elevated fear now. Packaged foods are going to be seen as a rising preference because they are safe and hygienic to eat. And there will be the consumer or the person who goes to buy is going to seek value in whatever he or she buys, because for every rupee spent, they will seek value in that, primarily because the budget money strings are going to be very tight now, given the recessionary environment. So in terms of the pandemic, okay, what are the evolving food habits? I think people's food attitudes and behaviors in the long term is likely to be impacted in terms of where is my food produced, how is it processed, how does it get distributed, okay, what am I eating today and how am I eating it, okay, where am I eating it, is my food likely to be recycled, is there anything that I can kind of give back, and the appreciation of actually food security that is available to you. Yeah, so this is all that is going to kind of envelop our lives and the way we eat. In terms of how COVID-19 is going to bring about strategic themes in food and nutrition. And this is an important chart that I want to let you all through. I borrowed it from Euromonitor, which has really summarized this whole fantastic universe into one small slide. And if we see consumers, right, when the people are actually going to be eating through segmented eating occasions. You know, people are eating anytime, anywhere. There will be a new value equation. I've already kind of, dwell upon that. Also, life stage nutrition. Older people are going to actually are to be looked after more. What is it that they will actually benefit from versus the kids, versus the teens, versus the middle-aged? So there is going to be a very clear, and this is a big opportunity actually for the nutrition community on this webinar today, in terms of how we actually segment the different nutrition requirements for life stages. Sensory experience will continue to prevail, especially amongst Indians, because we are very high on taste, texture, flavor of food, etc., which is not likely to go away. And that is why we have so many home chefs who are actually replicating restaurant experience. And people will want to seek permissible indulgence. They will eat indulgent foods because it gives them some amount of emotional high. So this is also likely to stay. The big shift is going to be on where does my food come from in terms of provenance, what good does it do to me, and where is the country of origin. So people back to local, returning to the roots, okay, and also at the same time internationalization of food as well, which is not going to, so how this whole thing pans out is for us to see and actually put into practice in future. Food technology and digital economy. So actually, how can I trace this food that has arrived and put on my dining table? Is there going to be a traceability of the ingredient that has been used till the last ingredient put in by the food manufacturer? Okay. We know there are lots of apps now and lots of exercise videos, etc. So is it going to be a data-driven health? People are going to actually be conscious about the packaging technology. Am I buying more plastic? Am I harming the environment? Is this particular packaging sustainable? And food delivery, which is going to, I think, really take on a big scope in our lives. Functional food and regulatory environment. Food as medicine, definitely. Indians knew it always. And a lot of Asians, Southeast Asians, I see, Chinese are all into it. So food as medicine is going to be very important. Food with functional claims, we will see more of it in the market, in terms of food manufacturing being actually diverted towards giving value-added foods as far as health is concerned. What are the functional nutrients can I eat, right? A lot of people have started having lemon juice and oranges, etc., to get their dose of vitamin C, which now they are connecting, or turmeric tea, etc. So all those things are actually coming in. And what are the labeling and regulations that are going to control all of this that I spoke about? Mindful eating and the new food beliefs. So clean label and era of minimal processing will definitely, and as I take you through some more slides, you will see, how people are looking for it more. Healthy eating in a post better for you world. Okay. And new and ancient ingredients will definitely make new ingredients will be on the block and ancient will make a comeback. Plant-based eating will, there is a lot of actually thought going in these days on, how much meat to eat and how much should I avoid? Should I make it thrice a week, or should I make it, be, sometimes vegetarian, sometimes vegan? So those are the kind of things that are going to come up. Alternate, so you will have animal welfare to be considered, dairy alternatives. So as I was looking at some data recently, I saw, that the sales of oats milk and many of the other plant-based milks have really shot up in the last 3 months across the globe. So I think that's something that people are going to look at in terms of what are the replacing things that I can provide back to the planet. Edible insects, which is still going to remain, lab cultured meat and meat analogs, and sustainable eating and environmental cost of food. People, the person is going to be a conscious consumer. Organic, for me, is it going to be organic for the plant? Plastic free future, fight against food waste, and the role of ethical brands. So all this is going to be rolled into what we actually are seeing as big shifts. Now in this environment, and this is a very important chart that I would kind of like to share with you, food industry is likely to see the largest shift in 2020 sales. So this is our 2020 data only. And if you see what I have marked out right below, fresh food and packaged food show the highest actually positive shift in this era compared to all the other categories that you see, from luxury goods to home and garden to hot drinks, toys, home care, pet care, etc. All those things, you see that packaged, and so people are actually becoming very conscious of what they eat, and packaged food is being seen as a preference because it is safe. In Asia, actually, we find that, you know, there is more consciousness which is coming in, and it will actually provide the signposts for the future. So what is going to happen? You know, we will have potentially retained habit changes, which will remain with people for some time or probably forever. That is yet for us to see. Localism, I have already spoken about, and increased use of smaller and local stores, right? People don't want to go to malls anymore or big supermarkets. More online shopping, use of delivery, even for things that were previously not delivered, you know, online, and greater purchase of immunity boosting food. So these are the like 4 or 5 things that are coming very upfront on our faces for people to consider. Now, in this particular, this is actually, I've also copy pasted the question that was asked to the people, you know, when they did the survey. Which of the following factors do you look for on food and drink labels? And it's so clear that country of origin contains added vitamins and fiber and contains protein. So actually, for nutritionists, this is the time to really, really build our connect with, for us, it is consumers, for you, it is patients, clients, yeah, whoever, or the general people at large, right, on nutritious food, because they are looking for that, right? So if you see, food provenance is coming very clearly. They want to know where their food is coming from, how good this food is for me, supporting local food safety, protective in nutrients, and decreased interest in exotic ingredients. So this is very, very clear that people may not run for many of those foreign foods now as they used to earlier, because it is really showing up in the this is again a very good chart that I kind of borrowed from Mintel in terms of what are the people going to embrace, you know, in terms of eating habits and shopping practices. So in terms of 1, 2, and 3, make immune boosting a lifelong pursuit. This will come up, and this is again a very big opportunity for nutrition, right? So I think as Anuradha put it, that, you know, there may be challenges for you in terms of, you know, young students passing out, but I think, you know, this is the time to convert those challenges into opportunities, and how you can actually help community at large, you know, in terms of making a difference, because people will look out for support around this space. Turn online shopping into a new consumer lifestyle. And this is again a place where, you know, nutritionists and dietitians can connect with e-commerce guys to actually make food into a value commodity and bring consumers back to enjoy meals at home. And here is again an opportunity for us to provide diet plans, to provide recipes and things like that, which they can easily cook. So these are the 3 big things that, you know, we can, and in all these things we have a role to play, which was actually very, very heartening to see. In terms of you know, health and wellness, packaged foods, and if you see how it has been kind of, you know, seen from 2014 to 19, yeah, immunity actually has remained for a long time. So it is just not coronavirus that is bringing health. Immune support is something that has remained for the last 6 years. Okay, but I think it is going to see a new or big surge, because this is 2019 data. But if you see now, it will be, I think, at the top. So this is going to be a big one. So in terms of, I don't know how to remove this actually at the top. Oh yeah. So what are the opportunities for the food industry? You know, so it's not just about catering to physical well-being. We usually always think about, you know, what this food will do for me, but also in terms of emotional and societal well-being. I think we are all thrust into a time when we are looking for all 3 kinds of well-being. And from a physical well-being perspective, I think fortified foods with vitamins and minerals that help support immunity, foods to fuel a healthy microbiome. I don't know how many of you know, but 70 to 80% of our immune system sits in our gut. And Ayurveda always knew it. Therefore, when you go to an Ayurvedic doctor, he will ask you, you know, whether, you know, you are having a proper bowel movement every day, because that is the seat of disease and seat of health as well. So what is it that's going to help? Fiber, prebiotics, probiotics, and of course, all the foods with functional ingredients that help to strengthen the body's defenses. In terms of emotional well-being, people, as I said, will continue to seek taste, right? Because at the end of the day, you know, in this depressing time, people want to get some, you know, feel-good factor out of food. They want to taste, they want enjoyment. Also, I think the communication that, you know, the food industry will bring out in their digital, in their other outreach activities, you know, which will actually help them bond with people through recipes, through activities, through engagement. And that's going to be a big one. And fostering social and emotional connections that nourish the mind and body, which will be again a very big one. In terms of societal well-being, you know, what is the food security? I think you must have heard that, you know, most of the corporates today across the globe, and a lot of them in India, including the company I work for, that is Kellogg, you know, we're doing a lot of donations, actually food donations to people in need at this point in time. And I think this is going to be a big step forward actually for all food companies to provide food security. Also making food available for people who want to buy, which is also a food security. Food sustainability, is there going to be enough grains for people to eat? Will that grain be available to people? Are there going to be enough vegetables that will see the light of day in the market? And access to nutritious food, which is going to be a very big one. In terms of, I think one slide on what our company does, and in terms of Kellogg supporting health and well-being. As you know, this company is, you know, more than 100 years old, and, you know, it is a plant-based company. So I think this is something that we always knew, and their impact on the broader world. So we also kind of play in all these three spheres through physical well-being, through a plant-based diet, actually, to promote physiological well-being with macro and micro fiber, and you know, with protein, etc., to support microbiome and immune health. And we will continue to actually look at the new normal now to innovate the foods. Emotional well-being, you know, how do we actually bring about that togetherness? And in the recent times, we have actually released a lot of ad campaigns around, you know, social and emotional connections from a larger perspective, and from a societal well-being, right? We are uniquely placed actually to help all the urgent issues on food security, producing food which is sustainable and access to our nutritious food. So what are the key takeaways from this talk of mine? In terms of short term, we will see, and we have seen, a lot of stockpiling and supply chain disruption. In terms of medium and long term, in line with recession, we will see people actually looking for value for money of offerings, increased home cooking and decreased demand in food service and institutional. And consumer habits may always remain, so there will be increase in e-commerce, food safety and localism. And most important is greater purchase for health and wellness food. And here is again where how we can make a difference. So with that, I hand it over to Subhadra. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Madhvi. It was indeed an excellent presentation, very crisp, and with, as usual, very good, authentic information you have given. And you have rightly emphasized the transition in the consumer habits, okay, right from the consumers becoming more inquisitive to understand the food right from its production, nutrition, marketing, and consumption. And you have also emphasized on the need for the food markets or food industries to convert these changing consumer behaviors into the into innovative food product development and marketing of the same. Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation.
Thank you.
Yeah, we will get back to you with question answers after the request you to stop sharing, screen sharing.
Is it on still?
No, it's off now. Thank you, Madhu. It's off now. May I request the co-host to stop the video? That's good. Okay, the second expert of today's webinar is Mrs. Teetha Shah, who is a successful entrepreneur and at the same time alumnus of our college. Teetha's professional journey has been so interesting and very inspiring to all the budding nutritionists and young entrepreneurs. The way how she prepared herself to become an entrepreneur is worth appreciation. Let me now introduce Teetha to all of you. Teetha has done her undergraduation at our college and post-graduation at SNDT Women's University, Mumbai. After completing her education, she joined Tarla Dalal Foods as a food researcher, where she was involved in the conceptualization, research, and production of general as well as health cookbooks. Later, she joined Anjali Mukherjee Health Total as senior nutritionist. And here, she got an opportunity to be involved in designing personalized programs, assessing nutritional needs, and developing dietary care plans, and also providing nutritional counseling to various clients. And after this, she joined Rocket Riddhi Siddhi Private Limited as Assistant Manager, Nutrition and Regulatory Affairs. You can see the wide variety of experience she has got in each of these positions. And at Rocket, she worked closely with Ministry of Food Processing Industry, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, industry associations, and FSSAI for successful approval of ingredients and additives in various food categories. Today, Teetha has her own setup, small food industry, where she is a director of Trito Foods Private Limited. I'm very happy to announce her first achievement. She has launched her brand of coated peanuts in collaboration with Candor Foods Private Limited. Congratulations, Teetha. And today she is going to share with us on impact of pandemic lockdown on food industry and nutritionists, navigating through and beyond. Teetha, over to you. Can I request the co-host?
Sure, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Firstly, I would really like to be grateful to our wonderful college for giving me the opportunity to present a brief talk on the impact of COVID on food industry, although Mrs. Trivedi has really beautifully explained the entire scenario. But my presentation will be slightly different, wherein I'll be talking about my journey and how this forceful lockdown has opened opportunities for nutritionists to introspect as to how they want to expand their wings and take on their skills further in life. So thank you once again to College of Nirmala Niketan and the Department of Food Science and Nutrition for this opportunity. I'll just start sharing my presentation, although it is very rudimentary, but I'll nonetheless, I hope you can gain some interesting perspective. Just a minute. So a brief history about myself, which Dr. Subhadra wonderfully explained. I did my bachelor's and master's in home science and majored in food science and nutrition. I started my career as a nutritionist and gradually diversified my profile with experience in product development, food regulations, and public affairs. Moving on,
Teetha,
I
can
had
you
a
share your screen? You
I
have
think
not shared your screen.
all right. Sorry, ma'am. I'll
The
just
PPT has to be opened and then shared.
sure, ma'am. Sure, ma'am. Ma'am, can you see now or
You have to open the PPT. Which one you want to show?
the one wherein I have shared the second mail which I had shared with you? Is it visible now, ma'am?
No, because the PPT was not open now. That's why it's not visible.
Okay. Sorry for the interruption.
You continue talking. I'll just see if I'm, if I can. Yeah, I will share it once.
Okay.
Just a second. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Tirtha.
Ma'am, actually, I can't see if you have shared or not. But nonetheless, I will just
No, you
move on.
can see. Yeah, I've started sharing the screen.
Okay. Pardon?
You will have to stop your screen share.
All right, all right.
Ma'am can share her screen.
Okay. Sure. Ma'am, so we'll, all right. Thank you. Ma'am, can you move the screen further because I. Ma'am, can you?
Tirtha, can you see the screen now?
I can see the screen, but I can't take it further.
No, I will take. You tell me
All
when
right.
you want to change the slide.
All right.
I will change it. Okay.
All right. Next slide, please. So my work experience gave me a unique opportunity wherein I had the privilege for collaborating as a nutritionist with food researchers, with scientists and professors belonging to various fields such as food technology, dairy technology, etc. With marketing professionals who are actually in the thick of things and who share various trends and uh, market scenario as in what's in trend and what's not. I got an opportunity to work with the food industry wherein I could market the ingredients that my former company was making and wherein I could position those ingredients based on the claims that they want to project. Um, I also had the privilege of working with food regulators and government authorities wherein there was a interesting period in between wherein FSSAI wanted to approve various ingredients prior to it seeing the light of the day in various food products. So that was a brief history as in how I gained from my experience. Next slide. So after working for nearly 8 to 9 years in the food industry and as a nutritionist as well as regulations, I kind of got thinking as in how I can take this experience further and leverage it in the role of being an entrepreneur, which was actually my dream. So for me, it was a decision which was kind of confusing and hard to make, wherein I try to see the positive aspects and the negative. So the positive was clearly there will be a freedom to work. I will have the liberty of time, as in how much more time or how less time do I want to devote to my work. I could be my own boss. It would be a experience wherein I could actually use my creativity not just for product development, but actually using my our mental faculty for troubleshooting various problems, learning how to handle the business, which is not generally taught while we are in our college, which is more of a technical education. But this is wherein you actually get the grips of the trade, wherein you learn bits of finance, marketing, people management, as well as the how to get the legalities right of a business, how to form a company, and how to take it further. Yeah, next. The clear-cut drawbacks are that there will be a lack of security. A job always is a very cushioned area wherein you know that my paycheck will arrive at the end of the month and I can use it however I want to. But there is a clear-cut lack of security. There will always be a fear of failure. What if my business tanks, and what if it doesn't work, and what if my single step, creates this entire turmoil? And finally, obviously, it will be at the risk of losing it all. So these were the clear-cut scenario that were there in front of me. But nonetheless, I took on the challenging role of going ahead and establishing my own company. Next. So I had two options. I have always wanted to have a brand of my own. So I had two options available in front of me, having my own establishment or going for a third party manufacturing. So next slide, ma'am. Having your own establishment would require us to have a knowledge of finance, of how to handle the manpower, of how to dealing with the grips of marketing and the distribution network, of owning a piece of land and actually bringing up a factory or a small workshop from start, and dealing with the laws of the land and the legal requirements. So all those things would have to be considered when one has to set up one own unit, especially when you have to make real products. Next slide. And there is the other aspect of going with a third party manufacturing, where you will have clearly a less burden of handling the manpower and the union, wherein you do not have to be involved in the daily bits of production and operations of things. And you can better concentrate on actually marketing and branding your product in this kind of digital age, wherein visibility and the looks of the product is everything. Unlike previous times wherein the brand of a bigger company like a Parle or a Kellogg's or a Pepsi is enough to take the product forward. But here actually in today's scenario, a new entrepreneur also has equal opportunity to be successful and be visible. Thanks to the digital age of Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and the likes. Next slide. Next slide, ma'am. So what I actually went was in for was going with a third party manufacturer. The COVID, as Ms. Madhavi has rightly explained, has opened various opportunities, as in terms of how we can handle safety better. There are clearly, food industry has always been at the fore when it comes to how they want to ensure the safety of the personnel as well as the products that they are making. But in today's times, there will be added emphasis on disinfection of equipments and services on a regular basis. There will be increased emphasis on personal hygiene, wherein people who are even slightly ill will not be allowed to come to the workspace, or they themselves have to self-monitor and be at home. There will be clear-cut changes in supply chain management and distribution network, and usage of electronic market spaces like Amazon, Flipkart, and how food delivery will be increasingly gaining importance in today's times. One clear-cut reason being is that obviously people want to look at their own safety, but this can also be looked at from another point of view, wherein convenience will be becoming increasingly more important. It was always important, but today, because of the added risk of actually being out there in the open, the convenience aspect, wherein food industry being uh, the key market leader in these challenging times will gain increasingly more importance. Next slide. And yes, beyond the new food industry, the nutritionists also have a wonderful role. We can use technology increasingly to spread our word through various apps and like Zoom or Loop. You can actually conduct your researches and market study online. We were always doing that, but today we will have it. There were a small segment who would prefer to go on a face-to-face medium to reach out to the customers and consumers. But online researches will be increasingly gaining importance. Uh, it's a unique opportunity to collaborate with customers, experts, and professionals globally. And one last but very important aspect is it's a beautiful time to introspect and upgrade our own skill sets. We have various websites and apps wherein we can upgrade our knowledge on business, or you want to learn languages, or you want to just learn something new about, say, Ayurveda or naturopathy. You can simply go online and sign up to some of these courses and upgrade your skill sets. So it's a particularly beautiful time for students who don't know what to do now, but I think by simply signing up for online courses, they will be able to learn and benefit greatly. Next slide, ma'am. So overall, today's time and age, I think it's a interesting time wherein the COVID has striked us. We have been able to use technology the most. So for the food industry, I think since there was a heavy reliance on manpower, I think most of the factory owners will be looking at reducing their heavy dependence on manpower, probably by usage of more machinery. And probably, which is not always a good thing for a country like India with a huge population. But because we always want to, as a business owners, safeguard ourselves from unpredictable situations, I think there will be an increased reliance on high technology equipments and probably even networking websites for conducting our meetings and just doing the business as we speak of as of now. So I've been speaking to various small-time entrepreneurs in my network, and most of them are actually looking at shutting down their own physical spaces and offices and rather going online. Why? Because you want to save cost. Because today, since there is this lockdown, suddenly everything is just at a standstill, and there is really no opportunity to earn. Rather, we are at a inflation kind of mode, wherein we cannot really earn much money. But the best way to look at it from now is how we can reduce our cost greatly. So if we are not being able to reduce the number of employees, we can at least cut down on our fixed costs. So that's what I can see. Like Ms. Madhvi rightly just mentioned, nutritionists will be having a great role to play in new product development, wherein their inputs will be heavily used by the industry for using innovative and healthy ingredients in our formulation. So these two examples wherein we have this honey as well as a Patanjali biscuit, which has been made with millets and multigrain, and sometimes they are even enriched with herbs, wherein you can actually tap into the need of the market, which is looking for better health defenses. So immunity is how what we see as a new trend, which will pick up big time. So that's it for me. I hope you have enjoyed my brief presentation, and I hope our wonderful audience have gained from my talk. Thank you so much, Subhadra ma'am, for giving me this opportunity. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Tirtha. It was a wonderful message, and you have rightly emphasized how important it is to put in hard and sincere efforts for anybody to become an entrepreneur. And you have also given some new ideas to the nutritionists, whether budding or experienced or retiring, to become an entrepreneur in life. Thank you so much. I'm sure many participants will have some doubts on how to begin with. Okay, we'll get back to you little later. So we now move on to our third expert of the session, Miss Grishma Doshi. And she has recently started her career in food industry. And to introduce her, as I have said in the beginning itself, all these, sorry for the need for a correction in the title, Miss Grishma Doshi. She is an executive quality assurance professional at Galaxy Cloud Kitchens Limited Future Group. She has done her undergraduation as well as post-graduation from our college, and her post-graduation was in food processing and preservation. And later, she has worked with big brands like Big Bazaar, Food Hall, Cafe Coffee Day, Birdies, etc., wherein she had exposure to ensuring compliance with food and hygiene regulations, conducting food safety audits, and formulating various documents for process control. And she has also compiled nutrient composition of above 500 regional recipes. And presently, she is in charge of looking into the product development in Galaxy Cloud Kitchens and also the quality control. Over to you, Tirtha. Over to you, Grishma, sorry.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you, Subhadra ma'am, for this elaborate introduction. I would also like to extend my thanks to College of Home Science Nirmala Niketan, our beloved principal, Dr. Geeta Ibrahim, and head of the department, Anuradha Mitra ma'am. Thank you for giving me this opportunity to connect with all you lovely people out there. I would also like to thank Mrs. Madhvi Trivedi and Ms. Tirtha Shah for enlightening us into the topic of food, on how food choices how COVID-19 can have an impact.
Grishma, can you start your video? Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, later you can share the screen also of your PPT.
Ma'am, am I visible?
Yeah, you're visible now, and once you start sharing the screen as well with your PPT.
Sure, ma'am.
Okay.
I would like to thank Mrs. Madhvi Trivedi and Mrs. Tirtha Shah for enlightening us into the impact of COVID-19 that has caused our lives, from our food choices to nutrition. Ma'am, am I sharing the video?
Not yet. You still have to share.
Is it visible?
Yeah, put it on slideshow.
Yes, ma'am. So let's begin with the session for the day. My topic for today is commissary operations, safety practices during the pandemic. We all know that the world is facing the toughest time that it has ever seen due to the COVID-19 pandemic. All the industries, including the food industry, is trying to deal with the current situation that we are in. Food sector happens to be the largest industry in terms of production, consumption, export, and growth prospects, and contributes to about 25% of the GDP of our nation. There are various segments of the food industry, which includes the agricultural sector, manufacturing chain, restaurant and cafe chain, catering and food stalls, processing, and commissary sector. I am going to give a little insight and a brief discussion on the commissary sector. So as you can see that we have a flow chart on the commissary operations, a very basic that everyone can relate to. We start with the receiving. Receiving of raw material is an essential step in any of the food operations, because we all know that the product and the quality that we receive of raw ingredients would ultimately affect the quality of the final product that we gain after processing. Hence, we do involve food processing in food technologists or quality experts to ensure that the materials that are received during the procurement, they are of perfect quality, and they are not they don't belong to a substandard segment, and if at all any substandard product is received, they can be rejected by the quality team. Hence, it forms our first CCP. Just to refresh our concepts, CCP means critical control points that each organization can develop based on their hazard analysis and critical control plan for the same. Going ahead, sorting and storage. Sorting and storage becomes our second CCP, because sorting could be as simple as when at home, at a smaller scale at home, when our mother brings dals or pulses, she happens to clean it. So the same thing happens in a larger organization, but at a larger scale, where the sorting is done to remove any of the physical hazard. A physical hazard can be a thread or a hair which can be found in the pulses or a dal or etc. And storage. Storage happens to be also a very critical point, because, for example, if we have a cream, a packet of cream which is supposed to be stored in minus temperatures, but due to certain reasons, if it is stored at ambient temperature, then it could lead to development of pathogens or microorganisms and hence spoiling the product. Therefore, storage at correct temperature is very essential. Then we move ahead to pre-processing and storage, if required in certain cases. When I'm referring to pre-processing, I mean the chopping of the vegetables, or you can say thawing. Thawing would, but when I say thawing, that would therefore justify why is it a CCP3? Because thawing is something has to be done under proper precautions. Also, if mishandled, it could lead to the growth of bacteria or harmful pathogens into the product. Moving further, baking or cooking. Why is it a important step and a critical point? Because if the baking or cooking does not happen to the correct temperatures, if it is not appropriate cooking is not done, then it could lead that the microbes which have been formed are still active. As we know that above 65 degrees Celsius, a majority of the harmful bacteria are inactivated. Hence, it becomes a critical point that cooking happens as per the correct temperatures. Chilling. Why is chilling also a CCP? Because when you bring any, as I just mentioned, that 65 degrees Celsius and above, the harmful bacteria are inactivated. But when we are chilling, we intend to bring the temperature from 80 or 100 degrees Celsius to 5 degrees Celsius. Why so? Because as per FSSAI regulations, between 5 and 65 degrees Celsius is considered as the hot spot. The current term hot spot that would spoil the product. Hence, during chilling, what majority of the industries are recommended to do is that they can have a blast chillers. Blast chillers would help them to bring down the temperature from 80 or 100 degrees Celsius to 5 degrees Celsius within a span of 90 minutes. And that would therefore ensure that there are no development or growth of pathogenic bacteria. Further, assembly and portioning. Assembling and portioning is mainly in terms of just sizing it out or packaging it, the initial stage of packaging that you portion it. Packaging. Packaging is again a very important CCP because packaging would be the last step where the product has come in direct contact with a human handler or a food handler. So it becomes a very important step. At this point, it is very critical to ensure that there are no physical hazard, which I mean by there is no contact with any threads, or there is no, when packaging happens in our industry, they need to make sure that there is no sweeping or cleaning procedure happening side by side, which could lead to putting the dust or enabling the dust to fly and sit on the material. Also, if the packaging is not done properly, if the sealing, if it is not sealed properly, then it could lead that the packaging, there is an infestation of pest into it, or from environment there is contamination, and therefore packaging becomes a very important step. Moving further, we go to storage. This storage would be an intermediate storage for certain industries. For certain, it could be that after packaging directly there is dispatch. So this storage would be just, also in this storage, it is important to measure the temperature, that at correct temperatures they are stored. For products like bakery, they would need to be stored at ambient temperature. For products like cake, we need to store it at below 5 degrees Celsius. Further, segregation happens as per the delivery, because for a commissary, it could be some a place where there are multiple outlets or cafes which come to a commissary and ask them to become their base kitchen, and they could be producing, a commissary could be producing for multiple sources or multiple outlets. Like mentioned in my profile that I work for Big Bazaar. For Big Bazaar, at this commissary, the products are being made, and then it is being delivered to multiple stores of Big Bazaar. So segregation would be essential during that point. Loading and dispatch. Loading and dispatch would be majorly to do with at the end, final letting the product out in for the stores. Now, a quality team does not end their operations at loading and dispatch, because when the product goes to customers like you and me, we would like to give our feedback, or we would like to draw a complaint. So all this has to be handled by the quality team, and the quality team will therefore develop some risk assessment programs, or generate a corrective action and a preventive action program, which would help to identify where something is wrong into the entire process. So this was just a gist on how a commissary operates. The industry is now evolving, and the commissary operations are slowly shifting to cloud kitchens. What is a cloud kitchen? Just a brief insight that cloud kitchen is it can be considered as a platform on which the food is delivered to directly through delivery options, but they are not they don't have a dining out system like we have in restaurants. The most popular example that I could give is of Swiggy. Swiggy is now developing cloud kitchens for themselves, where they would prepare and then be a platform where they could deliver, which they already are. But this is an add-on. So when commissaries, when they shift to cloud kitchens, it enables them to expand their business module. Okay, so now I'll go further. So the second part of my today's topic is safety practices during the pandemic. At this point in time, where there are certain commissaries which are operational because they need to provide essential services like basics of breads. Therefore, there are some practices which they need to follow. The first one being body temperature screening. We all know that thermal guns are used for screening of body temperature, and at the security gate it has to be done, and it has to be ensured that the person temperature is not above 37 degrees Celsius or 99.1 degree Fahrenheit. Apart from that, every industry is recommended to install a disinfectant tunnel. Now, what would disinfectant tunnel do is that whenever an individual comes inside the commissary, so before they could enter, they are asked to go into the disinfectant tunnel, where there is 1% of freshly prepared sodium hypochlorite being sprayed. That would disinfect them thoroughly from their head to the toe, because we might while traveling or while commuting, we might carry a few bacteria or infection or contamination, so it would help. Next, going ahead, sanitization of the personal belongings and isolating them. So each one of us do carry our mobile phones, our wallet, our keys, or anything. So these things have to be sanitized once they are entered into the commissary, because I assume that everyone who enters into the commissary does not leave their mobile phones in their lockers, in their respective lockers, but they do carry with them even after changing into coats or their uniforms. So it is very important. Practice social distancing. Social distancing is, of course, we all know that it is very important, but it is at times it is difficult to practice their commissary setup or in an industry where they are packaging, that one is handling, the other person is taking, but it is also very important. So hence, as a commissary, the operations or the manager need to ensure that they should be encouraged to not share any food. If they are getting food from home, they should not be sharing their food with other employees. They should not be even sharing their utensils or glasses. They should be bringing every employee should bring their own glasses or utensils or their dabbas from home and not share them, because that would lead to lower, despite the fact that we all know that this pandemic is there, and there is we all are aware of it, but it is very important, because this is the new normal for us, as we say. So when this is a new normal, it is across your place, or there is no social distancing being kept in place, or if they have just removed their mask to see if there's anything of such, then these displays would help them, encourage them, that and remind them that they need to now switch and again wash their hand, and so and so. Training. Awareness training is usually conducted by the quality team of each of the organizations. They ensure that the company employees are taking proper precautions. Hand wash reminder every 30 minutes. So it is very highly recommended for all the industries or the commissaries to have an alarm clock which would ring at every 30 minutes, which would help the employees to remind themselves that they need to go and wash their hands now. We do encourage employees to wear gloves, but it is not always possible if you are into a production of bakery where you are rolling a dough. So you cannot roll the dough wearing a glove. It is not practical. Hence, there has to be a solution to it, and this could be a preventive action where hand wash reminder at every 30 minutes there is an alarm ringing. We go for the food safety audit. So every QA personnel or a quality assurance personnel should conduct a food safety audit to analyze the risk and constantly evolve from it. If they find that during this pandemic time is to address to, this audit will help them do. And this will also create a data that a documentation that certain risks have been found, and in future if there are certain problems that arise, then it would help them through this documentation. Food microbial test. During this time of pandemic, we certainly know that there are no such evidences of of this coronavirus being transmitted through food. But just as a safety precaution, every industry should have a microbial test being run on a daily basis, most preferable, or at least on every week. Place where only this is your table and this is where you have to work. There is no other table. Closed lid dustbins. Food industry usually encourages closed lid dustbins to avoid generally contamination. But during pandemic, it is of utmost importance, because if a certain individual who has been infected but doesn't have symptoms, and no one knows that what is it, and that person has just used a tissue and dropped it into the dustbin, which is open, it would lead to contamination and further spread of the infection. Hence, very important that we have a closed lid dustbin also, which is foot operated and not hand operated. It is very important that we have a foot operated dustbin. Moving ahead, alert local emergency response team. Now, what is this is, that issue regarding the where we immediately come and disinfect to during the pandemic. Usual has ever ever is hand wash. Sanitizers to be used after every hand wash, and hand alcohol based sanitizer, sanitizer station, because that would help lower the risk, that would lower the risk of any contact with it. Respiratory hygiene. Wearing mask is of course very essential. Center of Disease Control has given us guidelines on how we can even dispose of the mask, because we wear the mask like this. For example, if I would demonstrate it. Okay. So if you are wearing the mask like this, CDC has given guidelines on how this would be
able to see you demonstrate. Are you demonstrating it?
Yes, ma'am.
No, I don't think that we are able.
for 24 hours. And if it is of paper, then it could be for 5 days. Depending on what is it, the quarantining can be taken in consideration. But it is a very good practice. And how one like touch points, and it is very important that the sodium hypochlorite is freshly prepared. So followed by which there is metallic surfaces like doors or handles. They can be sanitized water. But what our milk, the packet which comes, or the plastic which is there, yes, I just mentioned that plastic can be kept, the retention is on in a kitchen, there food, or it could food. So for that matter, quaternary methyl I would who is training individuals, they could more positive, would learn to respect food, because yes, it is what currently we are on. And also very important that understand that quality and food safety is of utmost importance. So I have a few quiz questions, if we can go through, ma'am, right now.
Yeah, but how do you expect the answers?
Via chat?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay. So my first question is, COVID-19 can spread through food? I would like the audience to please and put down their
Answer in the
answers
chat.
in chat.
Just by saying yes or no.
Yes or no, yes.
I hope all the participants are vigilant and attentive during the presentation. I request all of you to please post your answer just as yes or no. Okay. Yeah, Grishma.
Ma'am, I can't read the answers actually, sorry.
Yeah, it's a negative, like no was the major answer.
Thank you, ma'am. Ma'am, if you could please help me with the answers, because I get
surely.
Thank you, ma'am. So my next, as you all mentioned, it's right. There is no such evidence so far. Next question is, hand washing is not required if gloves are worn. Please state true or false.
False. The answer is false.
Because gloves may give us a false sense of security, but hand washing is a must. There is no replacement. My third question, common touch points such as doorknobs, shopping carts, etc. can be disinfected using
70% alcohol is the answer.
Sorry, ma'am?
70% alcohol is the answer.
Okay. Yes.
Correct.
Absolutely correct. My fourth question, HACCP stands for?
You are demanding a lengthy answer, Grishma.
Sorry, ma'am.
You are demanding a lengthy answer.
Okay, I can skip it. It's
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Because
So
I
I would
know
just
only
say,
professionals and academicians would answer that question.
absolutely, ma'am.
Yeah, but the
And
answer has come: hazard analysis and critical control points. Yeah,
that's great. Thank you for the response.
yeah. And the last one,
Tissue or a handkerchief, which one is more safe to use? And I mean it during the pandemic.
yeah, tissue is the answer.
Absolutely.
Now the participants have become very quick in posting their answers. It's nice.
Such a great response, ma'am. Thank you so much. Just before before ending the session, I would just like to mention that though we are not at the first line of defense during the coronavirus pandemic, but definitely each one of us are coronavirus warriors, because what I understand is food and nutrition is what would drive our coronavirus warriors at the first line, like medical professionals and also the infected individuals, because nutrition is what would give them immunity and they would heal faster. So yes, we all of us are coronavirus warriors. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rishma. It was indeed a very, very interesting presentation. And actually, it must have given a big sigh of relief to all the consumers of food, that the food industry is also taking care of the food safety. Because our dependency mostly currently is on processed food, and so really all of us have been enlightened on the precautions that the industry is taking. So I now request Madhvi also to switch on her video. We will just quickly take just two questions each, because we have already short like outshot our time. So I'll just quickly pose two questions to each of you. Firstly, Mrs. Madhvi.
Yeah.
There are actually, I have a small request to you. That is, there are some questions for Tirtha as well, but Tirtha had to leave. Okay, so yeah, so I hope you don't mind taking those queries.
If I can answer them.
Yeah, you will be able to, because your experience is so vast that you will be able to definitely answer that question. Okay, so the question which you have already seen on the chart, actually, how does the food industry assure the security, which was aimed at you, only that question. And you said the question is already answered by Grishma. Yeah.
While the question came, Grishma was going through that, and I don't think I could have even had the opportunity to provide such a detailed answer. So I think thanks, Grishma, for that. You answered the question through your presentation.
Ma'am, I'm just learning.
Yeah. So, but actually the question which was there, in addition to this, in the same question was, do you think the COVID-19 situation has increased or decreased the professional opportunities for nutritionists? Madhvi, I want to have your opinion on that.
See, at this point, you mean to say for food industry, at this point in time, very early to say, honest, I'll be very honest here, right? Because we've just been about, 2-3 months into the process, and it has taken 1.5 to 2 months for the industry to grapple and come back to normal, right? To supply the food. So within that frame of mind, right now it is about, supplying what we have, right, to the people. How it will pan out for nutrition to come into the food industry, especially I would look forward to in the SME and MSME sectors, where probably there will be bigger opportunities for them to hire people, because people will be looking for, when there is a demand, there will be a supply, right? And so I think that, and I'm hopeful that, there is big opportunities for.
So you say like the opportunities are more for food entrepreneurs rather than direct appointments into a food industry?
It can be both.
It can be both.
Yeah, because there is a large sector of small and medium industries, right, which will be actually manufacturing food, and which will be looking probably at more at a food that is like, geared towards health providing and wellness providing properties. So I think there could be a requirement, but too early to say at this point in time.
And there is actually another question like now because of COVID-19, there is a lockdown which is getting extended again and again, and all the malls, etc., and bigger shops are closed. Okay, so they must have, and the closure has happened all of a sudden. So they must have had a lot of food stock remaining with them. So now once the concern of most of the consumers is like, no, once the lockdown is shifted, is it advisable to visit these malls to pick up the processed foods or not?
See, actually, first and foremost, I would like to kind of change the thinking of this whole entire group of people who are with us, and let's call it packaged foods and not processed foods, because everything that we eat today is processed from a wheat grain, right? So, you know, I think there is a very wrong connotation in a lot of people's mind that this is processed. Everything that we eat today is actually from milk that we don't think that is processed, or a wheat flour, which everything. So coming back to actually packaged foods according to the FSSAI norms, you know, has to put the best before date, right? So it is up to the consumer to be smart enough when they pick up the package, yeah, to see that how much of shelf life of that particular food is remaining, right, after the lockdown, if they are entering the malls, and to see that whether, you know, they will be able to consume that product in that much of shelf life that remains.
Okay. Yeah. So there has to be very smart.
Because the food industry is informing the consumer. The consumer has to be like, you know, take the first step to get informed.
Okay. Okay. So there was one question actually that was for Tirtha, and I request you to see if you could answer this. How to increase visibility of a brand, of a food product which is newly developed?
Newly developed or an established brand?
Newly developed, because this question I think must be from entrepreneurs or aspiring entrepreneurs. So if you have already developed a product or just conceptualizing the product, then the marketing will be definitely on their minds. So how to increase the visibility?
So increase the visibility can be happening through different ways, right? The first thing is that you advertise the product. Like, it depends on the amount of monies that you have behind you to do that, right? Whether you want to kind of, you know, do it as a big impact advertisements and in expensive media like TV, etc., or you want to go slow and steady, right, through digital and through other places where you can make, or you could have your own online channels through which you can start associating with, you know, very, very fundamentally strong e-commerce partners who can help to promote your website, promote your product. And the other thing is also about, you know, sampling the product. You know, there are lots of opportunity to sample, and if you create the word of mouth, right, and people saying, oh, that product is really very good, and I tried it at so and so conference, or I tried it at so and so event, you know, which is there. And then I think people start picking it up, because that is, I like, the key, you know, of creating word of mouth. So there are many avenues to do that.
Okay.
And once it has a strong footing, then you start advertising.
Yeah.
You see many brands doing that over a period of time.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Madhvi. Actually, there is one question, you decide who is going to take that question. It is like, no, is it safe to ask for home delivery of pre-cooked food nowadays? That is one question. Something related to that, how safe it is to eat out in this current situation if the food stalls out are open, restaurants and everything is open. So I want to have the viewpoint of both of you.
Grishma, you take it.
Grishma?
What?
Okay, ma'am. So when we say the safety point of eating outside, I would personally say that you first identify whether the restaurant that you are into, be a little more smart and identify that the restaurant has been practicing basic norms. And also understand that don't order from a restaurant which you are not aware of. You could possibly order that you know that this restaurant has been practicing safety norms even before the pandemic. So that could give you a little assurance that this could be safe. However, the best is to have home fresh
food. Yeah, that's
As I have been talking to some of my colleagues in China.
Okay.
Right, they are back to normal.
Oh yeah.
They've sprung back in Shanghai. Right, my team that sits there, they basically are visiting restaurants now. adequate care is being taken actually to produce the foods. So I think everybody will have to get there slowly in the new normal. That is when the trust will, so it's going to be slow and steady.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. Anyways, we are bound to get back to normalcy, but maybe in a new normal way.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, Grishma, there are one technical questions, one or two for you. With that, we will end. What are the
Okay.
additional CCP requirements at the receiving point during the pandemic?
I'm sorry, ma'am, I cannot hear you.
Critical control point requirements at the receiving point during the pandemic.
So yes. So at the receiving point, there are CCPs in terms of physical hazard, biological hazard, and we could also have a hazard from chemical.
What are
If
the
you are
physical hazards?
ordering,
Sorry for interrupting. There was another question linked to it. What are the physical hazards? Just can you give some examples?
sure, ma'am. Physical hazard could be as simple as a thread, which an individual usually wears on their hand, or it could be hair, a part of a small, even a small piece of hair is a physical hazard. Also, it could be stones that we could find in the grains. Apart from that, even if the canned product is dented, could be a point that it is an hazard.
Okay. Thank you so much, Grishma and Madhvi. It was indeed wonderful to have both of you, actually all three of you. Tirtha also, though she is not here right now with us. But it was really a wonderful session. And Madhvi, you have really made a wonderful beginning with the inaugural session. And then Tirtha and Grishma, both of you took over and you have shared valuable inputs with all the participants. And as I mentioned in the beginning, it must have definitely left a rich learning experience to everybody. And I wish to inform all the participants that today being the inauguration of our webinars, we took little longer time to fulfill all the formalities. But from tomorrow onwards, the webinar sessions, the expert sessions will begin on time and also will end on time. So I look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. We now end the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.